Hey folks, how are you? Welcome to the channel. Good to be with you fine people again. In this video, I'm not showing any current finds, but since I've purchased this, the MOFI pressing of Michael Jackson's Thriller, it's really made me dive into my other MOFI pressings of other albums because I have enjoyed this one so much. And it made me want to show my MOFI collection in this video. And I know thanks to this release, it's getting a lot of mixed reviews, and I even seen one YouTuber in the VC say he was done with MOFI because he and a few others were just so unhappy with the mix of this and the fact that there's a digital transfer within the chain of the process of cutting this album. So I know there's been a lot of criticism for mobile fidelity these days in the VC. Me personally, I love the way this sounds. I think it sounds great. I enjoy it. I'm happy it's in my collection. I think it sounds good. So I don't have a problem with MOFI currently. And I definitely don't have a problem with this release of Thriller because I think it sounds so good. But like I said, because of this, enjoying this, it made me want to spin my other MOFI pressings. I just wanted to show some of them in my video here. I don't have a lot of MOFI pressings, but the ones I do have I really do enjoy, like this one from the Beatles, Abbey Road. When I listen to it, it's my favorite Beatles album. Sometimes I think Revolver is my favorite Beatles album, but not when I'm spinning this album. When I'm spinning this album, it's definitely this one. And just love seeing that logo on the top of the album. And a great mix of this. I remember I brought a buddy into my music room and I played this for him. And he's a younger guy. He's a lot younger than I am, and he's used to hearing music either on his phone, or if he's feeling nostalgic, he'll whip out CDs. He's never heard of Beatles album on vinyl before, so I played this for him in the music room, and he was blown away by the mix of this. I remember him saying it sounds like they turned the sound into a big warm blanket and you're just smothered in it. Because he said I've never heard these songs sound like this before. He was really blown away by the mix of this entire album. We spun the whole album while drinking in here, and yeah, he was pretty blown away by it. It made him want to collect vinyl. I think he does now. In fact, I think I gave him my old turntable, and he and his roommate started a vinyl collection of R&B records. So really cool that it sparked him to go start a vinyl collection on his own. But I remember how blown away he was by the mix of that. One I love to spin is this one from the Pretenders, Learning to Crawl. This MOFI pressing of this album sounds really, really good. I have a used copy of it, American copy of it, which is just pretty typical. But this MOFI pressing the mix on it is so good, to the point where I won't even listen to my old used copy anymore. I just go straight to this. And that's one thing MOFI pressings have done on older albums, where I originally had just a good used copy that was in good condition, I thought sounded okay. And then I upgrade to this, and I never want to hear the used copy ever again. I'll probably never touch it again. Not when I have this on the shelf, and I love spinning this up. I actually spun it a couple nights ago here in the music room, and my God, the mix was so killer on this. Plus the song, it's one of my favorite Pretenders albums besides their first one. I think I actually might prefer this more than their first one. So many good tunes on this. Since Christine McVie died recently, in her honor, I'll show a Fleetwood Mac one. This is the only Fleetwood Mac album I have as a MOFI pressing, is Mirage from Fleetwood Mac. You know, this is not really my favorite Fleetwood Mac album, but it's not bad. I mean, it has Gypsy and Hold Me on it, which are the big songs on this record. It's a good album. I just don't think it's a great album, but I love the mix that MoFi gets on this album. Makes me appreciate it more. This is like the third copy I have of this album, which is weird because it's not my favorite Fleetwood Mac album. So why do I have 3 copies of it? I have a standard U.S. used copy. I have a Quiax version of it, and then I have this of a record I'm not too crazy about, but I got 3 pressings of it. But the MoFi's good. Now here are my 2 favorite MoFi albums, hands down, because I'll just show them both. We're getting into 80s bands here, and it's Tears for Fears, songs from the Big Chair, The Seeds of Love, both excellent albums. And on this MoFi pressing, my God, it puts you in heaven, especially this album. I mean, number one, the songwriting is really good on this record, so some good songs throughout the whole thing. But side one in particular is just so sweet. Sowing the Seeds of Love is great. Woman in Chains is great. Bad Man's Song. Songs for the Young at Heart. I mean, it's some great stuff on here. And the mix is so good. So thick, but yet so clear. The clarity is so great on this amazing record. So really glad to have the MoFi pressing of Seeds of Love, as well as Big Chair, or songs from the Big Chair. And this is an 80s classic, so I don't really have to go over the songs on this. But The Working Hour particularly sounds great on this pressing. And the very last song, Listen, as far as I can remember, I've never been a fan of that song. Even when I first discovered them back in 1985 and first got this album back around that time, I was never a fan of the last track because I thought it was just too weird for my taste back then. And so I never listened. I would always skip that album because it's the last album of the whole thing. So after Head Over Heels, I was done listening to the album. It wasn't until I got this and decided to listen to the whole thing in its entirety, even the song I didn't like, which was Listen, the very last track of the album. And because the mix is so good, and the separation of instruments, and they open the sound stage, and you can hear things a lot clearer than you could on, let's say, cassette. It made me really like the song Listen. And now it's like one of my favorite songs on this album. Even though it's as weird as it is. It's a very weird song. But on this pressing, they make it sound fantastic. And, oh man, I'm constantly listening to it. So, love those. Let's stay with the 80s. In Excess. These 2 albums were released. I think this one came out in 85. This one might have been 86. I don't really remember. This album came out first, and then they released this one. This is a huge one. Kick. This really made them superstars with, Not What You Need. Never Tear Us Apart, New Sensation, Need You Tonight, Devil Inside. Great 80s songs on this one. Love this band, love this album. And this pressing is particularly fantastic and sounds so damn sweet. Love it. This is really where I discovered In Excess. This song here, the song Listen Like These and What You Need were the 2 songs where I realized there was a band called In Excess. This is where I discovered them. Then, of course, you discover the songs on the albums before that, and then Kick came out. I even have X on mobile phone. What the hell, I'll show it. So 3 albums from In Excess on the MoFi label, and they all sound absolutely amazing. This is a fun album too. Not really my favorites. I mean, this is my least favorite of the 3 I'm showing from In Excess. But I actually saw them on tour during the promotion of this album. So And that was a great show, and I was blown away how great of a live band INXS was. Just a great band to see live. And this, I think, is an underrated album because everybody brings up this X and Kick as their favorite albums, and they should because they're great albums. But everybody forgets about this one. And I really love this album. Like I said, Listen Like These and What You Need were my introduction to them, but the whole album is fantastic, and this mix is really, really strong. They make the band sound amazing on these records. And this one too. This is everybody's favorite right here. Because it's such a killer album. So, really love those. Alright, here's my collection. I didn't think my collection would be complete without this on a MOFI pressing. Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Come on. I mean, mine's pretty partied out. It's seen better days, so this cover has a lot of wear on it. The record's still in great shape. I actually listened to this last week in its entirety. I haven't listened to Dark Side in its entirety in a very long time. Really enjoyed this pressing of this album. The mix is so good, and so many sound effects besides just the instrumentation on this album, and the way they separate everything on the mix. It's like you're hearing everything so clearly. You know, the clock alarm bells that go off, the cash register sounds, you know, the interview with other people in between the songs. Some great sound effects in the mix of this record, and MOFI got it really right because it sounds so sweet on my turntable. Like I said, not the best condition as far as the cover, the jacket here, but vinyl was still in great shape, and absolutely love the sound and the mix of this. Of course, I love the music. That goes without saying. Okay, and then my favorite Genesis studio album. Thank God they did a pressing of that. This MOFI pressing of Trick of the Tail from Genesis. The album came out in '76. I think this pressing's from the early '80s, '81 or '82, I believe. And, you know, I have the Genesis remastered discography in 3 different box sets, and I've one time compared the remaster to this, and I think I slightly like this better, even though the bass was a lot stronger in the remaster. The bass is not as strong, but the separation of instruments, stretching out that sound stage, and you could hear things more clearly than before. And I mean, you could say that for every MOFI album, every MOFI pressing, but particularly this one. And I notice it the most on this one because this is my favorite Genesis studio album. And I've heard this a million times on cassette and CD, now vinyl. It's ridiculous how many just 12-inch vinyl pressings I have of this. I've bought this album so many times. It's crazy. And if they came out with another unique pressing of it, I'd probably buy it again. Because I have way too many pressings of Trick of the Tail. But this one's I don't know if it's my ultimate, but it's my favorite. Because I do love spinning this. It makes me fall in love with the album every time I spin this particular pressing of it. Love the MOFI pressing of Trick of the Tail. Just hands down great. Alright, here's the last one. And I'm going to end with the Mighty Rush Permanent Waves. Now this is spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Sounds great. How big they make a 3-piece band sound is amazing. Because the mix is so good on this. When they put out the remaster box set of Permanent Waves, I actually didn't buy it because I thought this sounds so good and I was so happy with this. I think down the line I probably will buy the remaster vinyl version of Permanent Waves, but I'm in no hurry. I was going to say what you thought I was going to say. I'm in no hurry to do that because this sounds So spectacular. So spectacular. I wish there were more MoFi pressings of Rush, older Rush albums. I would snatch them up in a second. Maybe there is, that I'm just not aware of. But I was lucky to find this in a store, and they could have put any price they wanted on it. I would have bought it. I don't even remember what I got. I think I got this for $70 in Berkeley, in Amoeba, Berkeley. But this sounds spectacular. So good that I didn't want to get the remaster. The music it's amazing how the music comes alive. What's good about these pressings is they're all albums I've heard lots and lots of times, but I buy the MoFi pressing, I hear how the mix is so superior. It's like hearing this album for the first time again. I mean, I know I say that a lot in videos, but it's the truth. And particularly with this album, I remember I was blown away by how good this sounded. And I have 2 other pressings of it too. And it just smokes every vinyl pressing I have of this album. Hands down, it's like no contest. Absolutely love this this MoFi pressing of Permanent Waves. It's so damn good. Alright, that's it. Just a short and sweet video. Just wanted to get on here and just share my MoFi pressings with everybody. Since I'm on a MoFi kick these days with the Michael Jackson's Thriller, just wanted to make a real short and sweet video. Leave me some comments. What are your favorite? If you got a bunch of MoFi pressings in your collection, what's your favorite of your MoFi collection? I really would love to hear everybody's opinions about it. Anyway, that's going to do it. Let's talk in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.